Hey YouTubers and subscribers, a video that I fancied making on how to make Lightroom work 1,000 times quicker. It does involve using DNG files, so if anybody doesn't like DNG and thinks it stinks a poo, or they just totally don't like it, don't bother watching the rest of the video. But a DNG file, for anybody who doesn't know what a DNG file is, basically it's just an imitation of a RAW file, what Adobe created. So you can convert your RAW files into DNGs, and they're slightly smaller. They don't lose any compression or any of the good benefits of a RAW file. They're just slightly smaller, and when you edit, a bonus to them is when you're editing in Lightroom, I don't know if anybody knows this, but if you lose your catalogue and you haven't ticked the setting in Lightroom to write changes to XMP, if your computer crashes and in 2 years time you import those RAW files back into Lightroom with no catalogue, they'll be just RAW files again with no editing done to them whatsoever. Whereas with a DNG, everything gets wrote inside the DNG, so if you did lose the catalogue, and you could just import the DNGs in 50 years time, and the sliders would be exactly where you put them 50 years ago instead of back to zero. So the software you're going to need is Adobe DNG Converter, so we'll just open that now, and it is free to download for PC and Mac. And basically I'm going to tell you how it's going to work. What we're going to do is we're going to pretend that this folder here, JJB Photography Wedding, is a wedding. You could make loads of these, Jan and Bob's wedding, Claire and John's, Ethan and Jack. Well, not Ethan and Jack's two blokes, but well, it could be Ethan and Jack. I've done gay weddings, but anyway, whatever they're called, and you could name them all. But inside then you want to create a catalogue folder. Even though I've just said that's not really important, but if you don't lose the catalogue and you keep it in with the DNGs, then at least you've got it. So in 50 years time, when you open it up, you will have the previews as well, what Lightroom has rendered, so Lightroom will go a lot quicker. So it is handy to have it, but it's not end of the world when you've got a DNG. Whereas if you had a RAW, you're screwed without it basically, unless you've got the XMP enabled. So you want to create a RAWs folder for your original RAWs. You want to create small DNG for this magic that I'm going to show you. You want large DNG, which is just like a RAW. If it was me, once I'd gone to large DNG in 2 different locations, I'd get rid of the RAWs. I'm not saying you have to. This same procedure can be done with RAW files. You just create small DNGs, forget the large, and then afterwards you can extract the XMPs from the small DNGs and copy them into the RAW folder, and then you've got all your work done to your RAWs. Same thing. But anyway, so I've created a catalogue. So first things first, I'm going to open Lightroom 5, and I'm going to create a new catalogue because I like to create a new catalogue for every wedding that I do. So we want to go to desktop. Hang on. JJB Photography Wedding, and we'll call it DNG Test. And now I'll just hit create. Now if we go into that catalogue, I'll just quit Lightroom again. If we go into the catalogue now, we've got a catalogue, right? And then I've already copied the RAWs in there. There's only so many. Obviously I'm not going to use bloody 1,000 or 2,000 for the video, but I've already copied my RAWs in. So now what we need to do, we need to create some small DNGs and some large DNGs, right? So I'm going to select the folder for the RAW files first of all, so it knows where the RAW files are. Then I'm going to tell it that I want it to do small DNGs first. I'm going to go to the preferences, tick this setting here, compression / image size. This is where I'm going to change it to 1.5 megapixel DNG files. Now the DNG files will let me do everything that I can do with a RAW file as well. Now people thinking, oh, what are you doing knocking your files down to 1.5 megapixels? It's only to edit them in Lightroom. Bear with me and it'll make more sense in a while. So let's just convert them. And if you look in the small DNGs now, we're starting to get some DNG files, and they're only, look at the size of them, and these are what we're going to edit in Lightroom. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but from when I was watching the Creative Live website where I picked up these tips, the bloke was explaining it that even this size of DNG file at 1.5 megapixels is fine for up to a 27-inch screen. So deep down, why do you need 22? I'll show you in a minute how big the file will be, the self-same file at full-size DNG. Right, has that finished? Right, that's finished. So now we're going to do the same again, but change the output folder to large DNG. And I'm going to change the preferences and untick this setting. So now it's going to give me full high-resolution DNGs. If I wanted to, then I could delete my RAWs. And look at the size of the first one, look, 19.2, 17 meg. And if you go to the small ones, it's 653 kilobytes and 496 kilobytes. So you can see why Lightroom's going to motor a lot quicker. And what we're going to do, we're going to edit the small DNGs. Then I'm going to tell Lightroom, hang on a minute, that's not the folder I've been working on, it's this large DNG. And then I'm going to save the new previews in Lightroom and it'll be done. So let's quit this. If you really wanted to now, if you did this in 2 different locations, you could get rid of your RAWs. If you're not bothered about RAWs, which I would do because I don't need RAWs. I've got my large DNG, which is my backup. But for the video, we'll keep them. I'm going to open Lightroom. And we're in that nice catalogue in that same folder. I'm going to go File, Import Photos and Video. My son's just waking up. I'm going to go into my JJB photography and make sure that I tick Small DNG. And if you look here, I've made an import preset. So basically, I'll show you how to do it once we get into Lightroom. But what's going to happen is, on the way in, these photographs are going to get a right little bit of contrast, some sharpening and lens correction applied automatically on the way into Lightroom. So if I just do that now, and bearing in mind it'll go very, very fast. And if we just go to the Develop module, you'll see that there's a little bit of, this is my own little preset. So there, well, you won't be able to do it before and after, but you see I've pulled the highlights, put the contrast up a bit, knocked the clarity up a tiny bit. I've got 50% sharpening on, and I've got the lens correction enabled. The highlights don't really do much, but it just takes the edge off of any highlights. And basically to do that, you bring a picture in, you enable the automatic lens correction, you add a little tweak here, and then you just click this button here and add as a preset. Then on the way in, you can import it. So now, if you look at these pictures, let's just scroll through them. Look how quick I can move through these pictures, and there's no lag. Now, to be fair, I've not really done much editing on them. This is just the import work. This is not the final image that I'd show the client. So it is going to be quite quick, even on the large DNGs. But once you start editing this and really pushing it to an whole new level, it'll start to slow down. And can you see the 100% preview, what I was talking about? When you zoom in, 100% is not, can you see it's not massive. So if you're doing loads of your work in 100%, then let me just go to full screen. Can we zoom in? Let me just click it. It won't let us zoom when we're in full screen. What about now? No. So it won't let us zoom. So there you go. Let's pretend that that's 600 RAW files. That you've not 600 RAW files, but 600 of these low resolution 1.5 megapixel DNGs, and you're thinking, right, John, okay, my computer went a lot quicker there. It's not chugging like it does when I've been using Lightroom for half an hour. What do I do next? Well, let me just show you. If we go to the library and we right click on the small DNG folder, and it hang on. Update folder location, go to the large DNGs, hit choose, and you'll see now it's all been changed. But we are going to get a couple of error messages. So I'm just going to show you one other thing you have to do, and it is, I think it's under library, and it says might be under metadata, and save metadata to file, and you'll see it don't show again, it continue, and now what will happen is all them silly question mark things should disappear. That's if I selected it against them all, didn't I? Save metadata to file, update, save metadata to file. There you go. You need to select them all first. I only selected one. And can you see how all them silly queries have gone now? So basically, we're now in the full DNG folders. And if we go now back to, say, this picture, and we go to the develop module, and we zoom in again, you'll see that 100% is 1,000 times bigger now. Look at that. What you may need to do at this point, I mean, I wouldn't be zooming in and out. I'd already know that we're sharp, so I wouldn't re-render the previews, but you could select them all and then go render one-on-one previews. If you go to library, you need to do this, by the way, in the library module. I could now build one-on-one previews, but I don't need to because I've already edited them. They'd go into Photoshop now to be sharpened for the bride and stuff like that, so I'd just leave that. Now, remember when we discussed about using a DNG file if we lost the catalogue? So, sorry about the baby crying downstairs. So if we open Lightroom again, now, and we go and open recent, we'll open the default catalogue. And you'll see that we've got nothing in it. So if I now go file, import photos and video, and we go to the large DNG, and we import them in with no catalogue, don't forget we've lost the catalogue or we don't know where it is. If we go back to the develop module now, you'll clearly see that the contrast is there, the highlights is there, the sharpening's there, and the lens correction and everything else is there. Do you know what I mean? And you could even create another catalogue now by exporting the whole thing as a catalogue. So that's the bonus about the DNG file. Let me just show you something. If you didn't want to use the large DNGs now, if you didn't have this large DNG folder, all you do is when you've edited them all in Lightroom, you then open, you use a piece of software, which I'll show you how to do, to extract the XMPs out of these DNGs, because these are edited DNGs, aren't they, in Lightroom, and then you just drag them into the raw folder, import the folder into Lightroom, and Lightroom will read all the XMPs and put your sliders where they need to be, even for your large raw files. So you've done all your editing on a small DNG preview. Now, people might be thinking, well, why edit on a smaller file? Well, if you've got a massive computer, you don't have to, but to me, it's a DNG, so you get all the bonuses of being able to correct your white balance and do all those good things, and then you can do it on much smaller files because they don't need to be 22 meg, not unless your screen on your computer is the size of your house or something like that, and you need that detail. And then you can just apply it as in a blink, like I just did in Lightroom there. I just swapped from the little preview files. Now, I will tell you that Adobe have picked up on this, and that's why the new Lightroom 5 has the new smart previews, which is a very similar thing to these proxy DNGs. It's smart previews. When you import pictures, you can write smart previews so that if your drive's offline, you edit the smart previews. But for some reason, Adobe's made them 3 times as big as 1.5 megapixels. But Adobe's idea is that if you wanted to print one smallish, not too big, you could even do that. Whereas from the 1.5 megapixel, what we've just edited, the way I'm doing it, I wouldn't want to print. I might print a 6x5 if I had to, but I wouldn't really want to print from them. It's just to edit them for speed. Because you know yourself, my computer then would go through the big raw files as quick as the little DNGs as quick as the big. But that's only really because I didn't do anything to them. If I'd started editing them and using the adjustment brush and stuff like that and started really building things up, that's where you'll really see with the small DNGs at 1.5 megapixels that the speed will just be bulletproof, whereas your 20 meg RAW files are going to start slowing down, or even DNG files. So I hope this video helps. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe.